Captain Kim June pressed his palm against the cold metal rail as he stared at the giant screen in front of him. Red letters kept appearing and disappearing, each one bringing worse news. The Valari people were dying. Their beautiful crystal world was being eaten alive by something they called a reality tear. He had never seen anything like it in his 20 years of space travel. The tear was not just destroying planets and ships. It was unmaking them, pulling apart the very fabric of space and time until nothing remained. Not even atoms. Just empty darkness where life used to be. "Captain, sir," said Lieutenant Parkmina from her seat at the communications desk. Her young face looked worried as she read the incoming messages. "The Big Alien Council has been talking about this problem for 3 whole weeks now. They keep arguing about what to do, but they are not doing anything." June nodded slowly. He knew how these council meetings worked. Lots of talking, lots of fancy words. But when real danger came, most alien species ran away. They were too careful, too afraid of losing their perfect ships and their perfect lives. "What about the rescue attempts?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. Mina's fingers moved across her control panel, bringing up more red text on smaller screens around the bridge. "Every species that tried to help has lost their ships, sir. The Zephyrians sent their best battlecruiser last week. It lasted 4 minutes before the reality tear pulled it apart. The Crystalline Alliance tried sending robot ships. The tear confused their computer brains so badly that the robots started attacking each other. The other humans on the bridge listened quietly. Navigation Officer Li Dong sat at his station, already pulling up star charts of the Valari system. Engineer Han So-young was checking their ship's power levels and backup systems. None of them looked scared. They looked ready. June studied the readings more carefully. The numbers were terrible. Radiation levels that would kill most aliens in seconds. Gravity fields so strong they could crush the finest alien ships like paper balls. Time distortions that made advanced alien computers go crazy and start showing impossible calculations. Any smart species would look at these numbers and fly away as fast as possible. The Galactic Council was probably right to be careful. This was a death trap that had already eaten dozens of rescue ships. But humans were not like other species. They came from Earth, a world that tried to kill them every single day. Earthquakes that swallowed cities. Storms that could level forests. Volcanoes that turned the sky black. Animals with teeth longer than knives and venom that could stop a heart in seconds. Other aliens called Earth a death world and called humans Deathworlders. They said it like it was something scary and bad. But right now, being from a death world felt like exactly the right thing. "Sir," said Communications Officer Choi Day from the back of the bridge, "I am getting more messages from the Valari. They sound very scared. They are asking if anyone will come help them. They say they have children trapped on the crystal cities near the tear." June closed his eyes for a moment. In his mind, he could see those crystal cities floating in space like beautiful glass sculptures. He could imagine the Valari families huddled together, watching the reality tear get bigger and bigger, knowing that soon it would reach them too. The Valari were peaceful people. They made art and music and stories. They had never hurt anyone. They did not deserve to die just because the universe had gone crazy in their par space. "How big is their population?" June asked quietly. 12 billion, sir," Mina replied. "Mostly concentrated on 7 Crystal City ships and their homeworld. The tear will reach the outer cities in about 10 days. The homeworld has maybe 3 weeks before it gets consumed." 3 weeks. The Galactic Council had already wasted 3 weeks talking. By the time they finished their meetings and made their careful plans, there would be nothing left to save. June looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These people had followed him through asteroid fields and solar storms. They had fixed impossible problems and survived things that should have killed them all. They were humans, and humans did not leave people behind. "Navigation," he said in his quiet command voice. "Plot a course for Valari space. Engineering. Start charging our backup systems and check all the mechanical parts. Communications. Send a message to Earth Command telling them we are going in." The bridge became busy with activity. Fingers moved over control panels, voices spoke into headsets, and screens filled with new information. But underneath all the normal sounds, June could hear something else. He could hear his crew, trying not to show how scared they were, and they should be scared. This was probably going to kill them all. The reality tear had already destroyed every ship that got close to it. The odds of success were so small that most computers would just show 0. But sometimes impossible was just another word for something that nobody else was brave enough to try. 24 hours later, the human rescue fleet left Earth's orbit and jumped to hyperspace, heading toward disaster that had already defeated everyone else. They carried with them the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, the crazy human idea that sometimes saving strangers was worth dying for. Engineer Lee Hanna crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel beneath the ship's main deck, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Around her, thick cables and metal pipes created a maze that most alien species would find impossible to navigate. But human ships were built different. They still had old-style mechanical systems that worked even when the fancy computer parts failed. Her hands moved over switches and dials that looked ancient compared to the glowing energy panels that other species used. But these simple metal controls had one big advantage. They kept working no matter what crazy forces tried to break them. "Hannah, how are our backup systems looking?" Captain June's voice crackled through a radio headset. "All green, Captain," she replied, checking the last set of manual gauges. "If the reality tear scrambles our main computers, we can still fly this ship with these old controls. It will be bumpy, but we will not crash." She pulled herself back up to the main engineering deck and looked out through a small window. What she saw made her stomach feel cold. The space ahead of them did not look like space anymore. It looked like someone had taken the universe and twisted it into impossible shapes. Stars appeared and disappeared like flickering candles. Some looked stretched out like long white lines. Others seemed to be folded in half, showing the same star in 2 different places at once. And through it all, the reality tear itself glowed with a sick purple light that hurt to look at directly. "Contact established with Valari survivors," announced Communications Officer Choi Day from the bridge above. His voice sounded strange, like he was trying not to cry. "Captain, they are so happy to hear from us. They keep saying thank you over and over. They thought everyone had forgotten about them." Hannah climbed up the ladder to the bridge level and saw Captain June standing in front of the main viewing screen. His face was hard and focused, but she could see the worry in his eyes as he studied the nightmare ahead of him. Through the screen, she could see the Valari crystal cities floating in the twisted space. They looked like giant glass sculptures, all curves and shining surfaces that reflected the strange lights around them. They were beautiful, but they also looked fragile, like they might break if someone breathed on them too hard. "Sir," said Dr. Yoon Sejin, the ship's doctor who knew about alien biology, "I need to remind everyone about how delicate the Valari are. Their bodies are made of living crystal. They are not soft like us. One small bump could crack them. One wrong grip could shatter their arms or legs." Captain June nodded seriously. "I want everyone to remember that. We are going into a place that could kill us easily, but the beings we are saving are even more fragile than we are. We have to be their armor and their strength." Navigation Officer Lee Dong looked up from his control panel with worry on his face. "Captain, I am reading massive gravitational anomalies ahead. The forces that could crush our small shuttles. And the time distortions are so strong that our clocks are already running slow compared to Earth time. What about our communication with the Valari cities?" June asked. Choi Day adjusted his headset and listened carefully to the alien voices coming through the speakers. "They are scared, sir. Really scared. Some of the outer cities have already lost power because the reality tear is interfering with their energy systems. They cannot move their cities away from the danger because their engines need stable space to work properly." Hannah looked at the readings on her engineering screens. The numbers were getting worse every minute they got closer to the reality tear. Radiation levels that would cook most aliens, magnetic fields strong enough to rip metal apart, and something else that their instruments could not even identify properly. "Deploy the hardened shuttles," Captain June ordered, his voice calm and steady despite the impossible situation. "Full environmental suits for all rescue teams. And remember, We are dealing with beings who are essentially living glass. One wrong move, and we shatter them. The crew began moving with practiced efficiency. Hannah watched as the rescue teams put on their thick protective suits and checked their equipment one more time. These humans had trained for dangerous rescues on Earth, pulling people from burning buildings and sinking ships. But this was different. This was trying to save aliens from a tear in reality itself. Dr. Yoon stood near the shuttle bay doors, preparing medical supplies for injured Valari. She shook her head with a sad smile. The irony is not lost on me, Captain. The galaxy calls us the most violent species. They say we are dangerous Deathworlders who destroy everything we touch. But now we have to be gentle enough to handle their most delicate people. Maybe that is exactly why we're the right ones for this job. June replied quietly. We know how to be strong when we need to be strong. And we know how to be careful when we need to be careful. The first wave of human rescue shuttles launched from the main ship, diving straight into the swirling nightmare of twisted space and impossible physics. Inside each small craft, human crews prepared to do what they had always done best throughout their history, survive the impossible to save others, even when those others were complete strangers from another world. As Hannah watched the shuttles disappear into the purple glow of the reality tear, she whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. They were going to need all the help they could get. Shuttle pilot Minho felt like his teeth might crack from grinding them so hard, but he kept his hands steady on the flight controls as his small ship shook violently. Outside the cockpit windows, space had gone completely insane. Gravity pulled his shuttle in 3 different directions at once, trying to rip it apart like a toy in the hands of an angry giant. Behind him in the passenger section, 12 Valari refugees huddled together in specially padded seats. They looked like living glass sculptures, all smooth curves and glittering surfaces that caught the strange purple light streaming through the windows. Every time the shuttle shook, Minho could hear tiny crystalline sounds as their bodies vibrated with fear. Easy does it, he said softly, trying to keep his voice calm even though warning lights were flashing all around his pilot seat. We are almost through the worst part. Just hold on a little longer. One of the Valari, an adult whose crystal body showed beautiful blue patterns, made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Minho had learned enough of their language to know it meant, "Thank you." The simple words made his chest feel tight with emotion. These crystal beings were so fragile. Their whole species had evolved on a world with perfect conditions. No storms, no earthquakes, no dangerous animals. They had never needed to become tough like humans. They had spent their time making art and music and learning about the universe. Now their peaceful world was being destroyed, and they could not even run away without help. In the seat behind Minho, medic Nam Hyun-woo worked carefully on a young Valari who had been injured during the evacuation. The child's left arm showed a crack running from her shoulder to her elbow, like a line drawn on glass with a diamond cutter. If she had been human, such an injury would have been painful, but not dangerous. For a crystal being, it could be deadly. Hyun-woo's hands moved with incredible gentleness around the injured limb. His fingers were thick and strong, built for grabbing tools and surviving on Earth's harsh surface, but now they touched the alien child as softly as a feather. He used special glue designed for crystal repair, sealing the crack bit by bit while whispering soothing words in Korean. "There we go, little one," he murmured as he finished the repair. "You will be okay. We will take you somewhere safe." The Valari child made a happy chiming sound and reached out with her good arm to touch Hyun-woo's face. Her crystal fingers were cool against the skin, but the gesture was warm with gratitude. All around the rescue zone, similar scenes played out in dozens of human shuttles. Pilot Kong Ji-hai carried a family of elderly Valari through a radiation storm that would have killed them in seconds if they had tried to cross it alone. Her shuttle's thick hull and backup systems kept them safe while she navigated through space that twisted and bent like hot metal. Engineer Park Sung-min worked frantically to repair his shuttle's engines after flying through a gravity field so strong it had crushed part of his ship's frame. His Valari passengers watched in amazement as he hammered bent metal back into shape with tools and pure human stubbornness. To them, it looked like magic. To him, it was just another Tuesday. Some shuttles were not so lucky. Pilot Lee Young-soo's ship lost power completely after getting caught in a time distortion that aged his engines by 100 years in 10 seconds. But instead of panicking, he used the shuttle's manual controls to glide toward the nearest human ship, calling for help while his crystal passengers sang bravely to keep their spirits up. Back on the main command ship, Engineer Lee Hanna read the rescue reports with growing worry. Her screen showed green dots for successful evacuations and red dots for shuttles in trouble. There were far too many red dots. "Captain," she called out to June, who stood studying the tactical display. "We have rescued over 3 million Valari so far, but there are still billions more trapped in the core systems near the reality tear. At this rate, we will lose them all before we can get them out." Captain June stared at the display, watching the purple glow of the reality tear as it continued to grow bigger and bigger. Each minute that passed, it swallowed more space, more matter, more life. The other alien species had already given up. Their representatives had sent official messages saying the Valari homeworld was a regrettable loss and that some sacrifices were necessary for the greater good. But humans had a different way of thinking about impossible problems. Where other species saw certain defeat, humans saw a challenge that just needed a different approach. June's weathered face showed the kind of expression that had made other aliens nervous about humans for generations. It was a look of someone who was about to do something completely insane and probably suicidal. "Get me a direct scan of that thing's center," he ordered, pointing at the reality tear. "If we cannot outrun this monster, maybe we can kill instead." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They all knew that look on their captain's face. It meant he was about to suggest something that would either save everyone or get them all killed. Knowing Captain June, it would probably be both. Chief Engineer Song Kite stood hunched over his workstation, surrounded by screens showing numbers that would make most people's heads hurt. His eyes moved quickly from one display to another, his mind working through complex calculations while coffee grew cold in the cup beside his elbow. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly, but he could feel their worry like a heavy blanket in the air. Through the main viewing screen, they could all see more Valari crystal cities disappearing into the purple glow of the reality tear. Each time a city vanished, billions of innocent lives went with it. "This is wrong," Kite muttered to himself, adjusting his glasses and leaning closer to the readings. "The pattern is too regular, too organized." Captain June walked over to stand behind the engineer's chair. "What do you mean, Kite?" "Look at these energy signatures," Kite said, pointing at waves of data flowing across his screen. "Natural disasters are messy. They are random and chaotic. But this thing has a pattern. It pulses at exact intervals. It grows at a precise rate. It follows mathematical rules." Dr. Yoon Soo-jin joined them, her medical scanner forgotten in her hands. "Are you saying the reality tear is not natural?" Kite nodded slowly, his excitement growing as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place in his mind. "It is artificial. Someone built this thing. It is an ancient weapon system that has gone wrong somehow. Look at these resonance patterns. They match theoretical designs for space-time manipulation devices." The bridge fell quiet except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the distant sound of rescue shuttles launching and returning. Everyone understood what Kite was suggesting, but nobody wanted to be the first to say out loud. "If it is artificial," Captain June said carefully, "then maybe it can be stopped." "Exactly." Kite spun around in his chair, his tired face suddenly bright with hope. "The resonance pattern suggests we could collapse the whole thing with a precisely placed nuclear pulse. Like hitting a wine glass with exactly the right musical note to make it shatter." Communications Officer Choi Dae looked up from his station with confusion. "But, sir, we have been firing weapons at the reality tear for hours. Nothing we shoot at it makes any difference." Kite shook his head. No. We cannot attack it from the outside. The pulse has to be placed at the exact center of the tear, right at the weapon's core. That is where the resonance amplification is strongest." The hope that had started to grow in the room suddenly died as everyone realized what that meant. "Place how?" Captain June asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer would be terrible. Kite's excitement faded as he faced the harsh reality of his discovery. Someone has to fly directly into the epicenter and manually deploy the nuclear device. The radiation levels and temporal distortion mean all our remote control systems will fail before they get close enough. It has to be done by hand. The bridge became so quiet that everyone could hear their own heartbeats. Through the viewing screen, they watched another Valari city flicker and disappear forever. It would be a one-way trip, Kite continued quietly. The person who goes and will not come back out. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The weight of the choice hung in the air like a physical thing. 12 billion Valari lives against one human life. The mathematics were simple, but the human cost was enormous. I will do it, Kite said suddenly, his voice steady and sure. It is my plan, and I know the resonance device better than anyone else. My shuttle is already modified for extreme conditions from all the repair work I have been doing. Before anyone could respond, Pilot Kong Jihai stepped forward from her position at the navigation station. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with the kind of quiet confidence that came from flying through asteroid fields and solar storms. I will fly you in, Chief, she said simply. You will need both hands free to work with the technical equipment. Besides, if we're going to do this crazy thing, we should do it right. Captain June felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders like a heavy coat. In all his years of leading people, this was the hardest moment he had ever faced. He was about to send 2 of his crew members to their deaths to save aliens they had never met before today. But that was exactly the kind of thing that made humans different from other species in the galaxy. When faced with an impossible choice between saving strangers or saving themselves, humans chose the strangers. Prep the device, he ordered quietly, his voice heavy with emotion, and make it count. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Kite and Jihai prepared their modified shuttle, while the engineering team loaded the nuclear resonance device. The rest of the crew worked to evacuate as many Valari as possible before the final mission began. As the single shuttle separated from the main ship and began its flight toward the blazing purple-hard reality tear, everyone on the bridge knew they were watching 2 heroes fly towards certain death to save a species they had met only hours ago. It was the most human thing anyone could imagine. The light from the explosion was so bright that it turned night into day on planets 3 star systems away. People on distant worlds stopped what they were doing and looked up at their skies, wondering what could create such a brilliant flash across the darkness of space. At the center of the blast, the reality tear that threatened to devour the entire galaxy began to collapse in on itself. The purple glow that had twisted space and time started to shrink, pulling inward like water going down a drain. The ancient weapon that had malfunctioned eons ago finally died, taken with the terrible hunger that had consumed so much life. Captain Kim June stood on the bridge of the Resilience, his hands gripping the metal rails so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Around him, his crew stared at their screens in stunned silence. The readings showed impossible energy levels, gravitational waves that shook their ship like a toy, and then nothing. The reality tear was gone. Where it had been, normal space slowly began to return, stars appearing in their proper places as the fabric of the universe healed itself. "Sir," said Communications Officer Choi Day, his voice shaking with emotion, "I am picking up a signal. It is very weak, but it is coming from a shuttle." June's heart jumped his chest. "Is it them?" "I think so, sir. The signal matches Chief Kite's shuttle, but it is badly damaged. They are drifting about 50 kilometers from where the tear used to be." The rescue took 4 hours. When they finally brought the shuttle into the ship's docking bay, it looked like it had been through a war. The metal hull was twisted and scorched, the windows were cracked, and half the systems had failed completely. But inside, Engineer Song Kite and Pilot Kong Jihai were still alive. Dr. Yoon Soo-jin worked over them in the medical bay, her face showing deep concern as she ran her scanners over their bodies. The temporal distortions around the reality tear had done something terrible to them. Kite's hair had turned completely silver white, and deep lines now marked his face. Jihai looked like she had aged 30 years in the space of an hour. The time distortions, Dr. Yoon explained quietly to Captain June. Their bodies experienced decades of aging in just a few minutes. They gave years of their lives to save the Valari. When Kite finally woke up, his eyes were still sharp and intelligent despite his aged face. Dr. Yoon sat beside his medical bed, checking his vital signs with gentle hands. "Was it worth it?" she asked softly, looking at what the mission had cost him. Kite tried to sit up, wincing as his aged body protested. Through the medical bay window, he could see Valari refugees in the ship's guest quarters. Crystal children played games while their parents sang gentle songs of gratitude. Families that thought they would die were now safe and together. "Ask the Valari children we saved," he said with a weak but genuine smile. The news of humanity's rescue mission spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. Species that had written off the Valari as lost were amazed to learn that not only had the crystal beings been saved, but the reality tear itself had been destroyed. 6 months later, Captain Kim Jun found himself standing in the most important building in the galaxy, the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of different worlds filled the massive chamber, all of them there to witness something that had never happened before. The Council was giving humanity its highest honor, the Star of Sacrifice, awarded only to those who risked everything to save others. The Valari delegate who presented the award was a being of incredible beauty. Her crystal body caught the light from the hall's windows and threw tiny rainbows across the walls with every movement. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes singing in a gentle breeze. "For so long, we have called you Deathworlders," she said, her words carrying across the silent assembly hall. "We said this because we feared you. We thought you brought death and destruction wherever you went." She paused, looking directly at Captain June with eyes that sparkled like diamonds. "But now we understand the truth. You are called Deathworlders not because you bring death, but because you defeat it. You charge into impossible situations not for glory or reward, but simply because someone needs help. You face certain death to save complete strangers, and you do it without hesitation." The crystal being's voice grew stronger, filling the vast hall with its musical tones. "Today, 12 billion Valari are alive because humans decided that no life is worth less than their own. Children play and families sing because Deathworlders from Earth chose to risk everything for people they had never met." As June accepted the glittering medal, his personal communicator began to chime softly. He glanced down at the small device and saw 3 new messages marked with red priority flags. 3 more distress calls had arrived from distant star systems. Each one was marked with the same notation in the galactic database: "Impossible mission, no known solution." June looked up at the assembled representatives, smiled politely, and began walking toward the exit. "Captain June," called the Valari delegate. "Where are you going?" He paused at the great doors and looked back at the hundreds of alien faces staring at him with curiosity. "To work," he said simply. "After all, we humans have a reputation to maintain."